Okay, today's daf is for Chag Shavuot. We're learning daf Shabbat Pei Daled. Today's shir is sponsored by Beth Fox for Refuah Shlema for her father, Edward Fox, Ezra Chaim Ben Slova. May have a successful surgery and a Refuah Shlema. Okay, we're going to start at the very top of the page. We finished yesterday. We saw in the previous sugya the different sources for how we know that a boat is not susceptible to impurity. Either we learn it from the verse, Derech Onia B'Lev Yam, a boat is in the middle of the sea, just like the sea is not susceptible to impurity, also a boat. And then that was the Tanakama in our Mishnah, or the Tana in our Mishnah. And Hananya says we learn it from sak, because a sak is carried. A sak is one of the items listed in the pasuk about all the impurities, just like it's carried full or empty. Likewise, any of the other utensils mentioned in the pasuk have to be also things that can be carried empty or full, and a boat cannot be carried generally. We talked about some exceptions to the rule, right, or some differences between them, whether we say a sfinat cheres, which isn't mentioned in the pasuk, and therefore even if it couldn't be carried, it would still be impure, or the sfinat hayarden, a sfinat that goes on the Jordan, which can actually be carried even full. Okay, so that would be the difference between Tanakama, who says all of these boats because they're boats and they're in the water, versus Hananya, who would say only if they're learned out from that verse about the sak. Now we're going to say another point about Hananya, starting from the very top of Pedaled. If you carry something, if something can be carried even by oxen, then it's considered tiltul. Okay, that's also considered carrying. I wanted to point out, right, Tosfot, by the way, on yesterday, on the previous daf, Pei Gimel Amud Bet, says in the last Tosfot, Lafuke Sfina she'ina metaltelet mele'ah, u'mashu metaltelet bayam lo chashiv le'tiltu, kevan de'ikari ducha machmat hamayim. In general, a boat is moved by the water, so carrying by the water is not considered tiltul, but carrying by oxen, if oxen pull it on land, then that's considered that it could be carried. Okay, water, since that's the natural way the boat travels, that wouldn't be considered that it could be carried. But by oxen on land, it would be. So now, how do we know this? Ditnan, shalosh, now we're going to quote a Mishnah from Kelim. Shalosh agalot henasuya. There's 3 different types of agalot, and different ones have different levels of susceptibility to impurity. Kikatedra, if it's like a chair. Okay, Rashi says, ktsara umukefet mishalosh tzadim. It has like a wall on all 3 on 3 sides and open on the other side, and that's where you sit and you put your legs. It's Tume'ah Midras. That's meant for sitting, and therefore it has not only Tumat Maga, but all by touching, but also Tumat Midras. If somebody who has Tumat Midras, like a Zav, a Zava, Yolet, and a Nida, they could make it impure. Kimita, if it's more like a bed, where it's on all 4 sides, then Tume'ah Tamemet. Okay, then it's not going to have susceptibility to impurity of midras. Rashi says, right, because here right, he says it's like a mitav or that doesn't have a nekev. Okay, it doesn't have this kind of thing. First of all, Rashi points out it doesn't have big holes underneath. It has boards, and there's not so much space in between the boards. Okay, now Rashi says they get other tumot except for midras. Why? Because it's not specifically used for sitting. And if someone were sitting on it, Rashi says, they generally put items on it that they would carry. If someone needed it for that, they would say, get up off my wagon. I need it for my stuff. And therefore, it's not necessarily anything that people could tell you, get up, don't sit on this. I need to carry items in it, or I need it for something else. Then we saw that with a measuring utensil. Somebody turns a measuring utensil upside down and sits on it. Since someone might need to measure something and they'll come over and say, give me that item, therefore it's not Tumat Midras, even though technically speaking, you can sit on it. So that's the mita. Shel avanim, if it's made of stone, tohorami klum, because stone is not susceptible to impurity. And the truth is, it's not even really that. Oh, sorry, my mistake. It's not made of stone. I got confused. It is made for carrying big stones. Now, if it's made for carrying big stones, generally the wagons they use had very big holes underneath, because if you were carrying large stones, it just needs to sit on something. And therefore, it doesn't have tuma because Rashi says it's prutzami tachtan nekavim gedolim below klihu. It's not even considered a kli because it can't have holes. Generally, we say the kli, a utensil, in order for it to, even if it has holes, it could still accept impurity as long as the holes are not big enough that if you put a pomegranate inside, it would be able to stay. These holes are much bigger than those holes, and therefore it doesn't have impurity at all. But Amar Rabbi Yochanan, and here comes the rimonim, the pomegranates. Okay, then he points out, by the way, okay, this is just a comment on the Mishnah by Rabbi Yochanan already. One of the Amoraim says if it could accept rimonim, pomegranates, then it is tameh met. Now I continue. Okay, now what do you see from here? The agala, okay, the first agala, the shalosh agalot, the ketedra, okay, tme'ah mishum midras. So what do you see? Even though it could be carried al yidei, it could be carried by shvarim, okay, by oxen. Right away, they're going to explain this. Let me just double check. Right, so the assumption here, one second. Okay, sorry, the proof comes from the avanim. Okay, if it's tamei meit shel avanim to horami klum, but Rabbi Yochanan says if it has a beit kibul, then it's tamei meit. Now, if you have an agala full of rocks, you have a wagon full of rocks, it's quite heavy. It's only the kind of thing that can be pulled by oxen, and yet you see this could become tamei. This is kind of like our boat. Okay, so therefore you see, when we talk about it can be carried full or empty, we're talking about being pulled even by oxen. That's considered it could be carried. Okay, now because they quoted this Mishnah, they're quoting the rest of the Mishnah. Shalosh tevotim, teva shepitcha mitzida, tme'ah midras. Now we're going to talk about 3 different types of boxes. Okay, now a box is generally used to store things. However, one could also sit on it. Now the question is going to be, how does one sit on it and how does one get the items in and out? It's not really how does one sit, it's more how do the items get in and out. So if you have a box that has an opening from the side, then it's tme'ah midras milamala, because you could sit on the top. I'm sorry, tme'ah midras. It's tamei midras because you could sit on top of it, and people don't need to make you move in order to put things inside because they can open it from the sides. You're not blocking that. But milamala, if the opening is at the top and you sit on the top, then they're going to have to make you move in order to put anything inside, and therefore it's me'at me'met. Right? This is very common that people sit. Think about I always think of my kids. They always sit on the luggage in the airport. Right? There's always times where you might take something and turn it into a seat. That doesn't necessarily mean that a suitcase is used for sitting on, right? So if they sit on it in a way that I couldn't actually open the suitcase, I'd have to get them to get up, which is usually the way it would be, then that wouldn't be considered a seat. And then it's only going to be tamei met. The haba b'midah, okay, there's a bunch of different interpretations why midah means this, but it basically means if it's quite large, okay, a very large size, and we've learned already that a kli that's a certain size that holds a certain amount of a measurement of se'ah is going to be tohoami klum. Once it's very large, and this again goes back to you can't carry such a large thing if it were full with so much. Already, if it's so large, it's going to be tohoami klum. And some people say midah because people use it for measuring things. Some people say midah means it's just a very large size. Then already it's not going to be a kli anymore because once it's so large, it's not considered a kli. Tanu Rabbanan. Now they're going to bring another braita. Midras klecheres tahor. Rabbi Yossi omer afasfina. Okay, this deals with boats, but we're going to have to understand what he means. The midras of a klecheres, if one sits on an earthenware vessel and one is tamei zav, zava, yoled, and nida, they're going to make it, it's not going to become impure. Okay, we'll see why soon. Rabbi Yossi says, even the boat. Now this seems strange. Why does it seem strange? Because we already learned from 2 different sources, either Tanakam or Hananya, that a boat is pure, right? Isn't susceptible to impurity. So why would Rabbi Yossi be telling us also a boat is impure, is not susceptible to impurity? There'd be no reason to say that. So the Gemara asks, my Kamar, what on earth is he talking about? So Amar of Zvid, we're going to have 2 different interpretations. They're charted out on your sheet. You can look. Okay, Amar of Zvid. Rav Zvid says there's 2, here's his interpretation. Hachi Kamar, Midras klecheres tahor, umagao tamei. He says the midras of a klecheres is tahor. However, and here he adds the words, and touching it though would be impure. Okay, if you touch the klecheres, then, right, it has tuma maga, it just doesn't have tuma midras. Usfina shel cheres mitameh, but a sfina of cheres is tme'ah. So when he says af hasfina, he doesn't mean even the sfina is pure, because that would be obvious. What he's saying is even that a sfina of cheres, of earthenware sfina, is going to be impure, even like the part in the beginning, even though it didn't say this explicitly, but what they mean is the part in the beginning was tamei maga, also the boat is going to be tamei maga, okay? Like Hananya, who said that a boat is susceptible to impurity. So then Rabbi Yossi says, right, okay, that's Rav Zvid. And Rabbi Yossi, Omer, Apasfina, sorry. Rav Zvid, okay, I have to redo that again. Rav Zvid said the midras of klecheres is tahor magao tamei, and the sfina is tme'ah. Sorry, and to that Rabbi Yossi responds. Now, Tanakama is relating also to the sfina of klecheres, and the sfina of klecheres is tme'ah, like Hananya. So, according to this opinion, the Tanakama, the Tanakama of the Braita is saying that the maga of a klicheres is tamei, but a klicheres itself is tahor, and a sfina of klicheres is actually tamei. Why is a sfina of klicheres tamei? We saw that according to Hananya, if we're going to learn it from the pasuk about the sak, that doesn't relate to klicheres because klicheres doesn't appear there in the pasuk, and therefore it's also going to be susceptible to impurity, just like the maga of a klicheres, also the sfina. Comes Rabbi Yossi, according to this interpretation, and says, Rabbi Yossi Omer, af hasfina tahora, no. Even a sfina is tahora, like Tana Didan, like the Tana of our Mishnah, who said that it's always going to be not susceptible to impurity. Now, there's a bit of a problem with this understanding, which is, Matkipla Rav Papa, my af. Af doesn't make any sense. Tanakama, if you want to look at just the boat issue in this Braita, we have Tanakama who says the boat is susceptible to impurity. Comes Rabbi Yossi, and he disagrees and says, no, the boat is not susceptible to impurity, which means that Rabbi Yossi shouldn't be saying af hasfina. Af hasfina means even the boat. Even the boat sounds like he's adding something, not disagreeing. So maybe disagreeing, but in a way that he's adding to something. So Rav Papa says it can't possibly be that Tanakama meant the boat is impure, and Rabbi Yossi disagrees because that doesn't match the wording. Ela Amar Rav Papa has a different explanation. He says the following: Hachi kamar midras klecheres tahor umagao tamei. Okay, the midras of a klecheres is tahor and his maga is tamei. This is just like the way Rav Zvid explained, but here he adds vishel eitz. This is another case where the Braita doesn't make any sense, and each person adds to make it make sense to them. Vishel eitz bein midraso bein b'magao tamei. But if you're talking about wood, whether it's midras or whether it's maga, it's going to be tamei. Usfinat hayardain tahora, and then he adds what is going. But a sfina of the in the Yarden is going to be pure. Kitana didan, like our Tana of our Mishnah. Now it's the flip of Rav Zvid. Tanakama is saying a sfina is tahor, like Tanakama, who said we learned from sfina b'levyan. Rabbi Yossi omer af hasfina tme'ah. Rabbi Yossi says no. Even a sfina is tme'ah kechananya. And when he says afa sfina, remember, Rabbi Yossi's words in the Braita were afa sfina. He didn't say afa sfina to'ora or afa sfina tme'ah. The question is, what's he referring back to? He's saying, just like we said, shel eitz bein midras bein maga tahor, and the kli cheres maga tamei. The kli eitz, no matter what, is tamei, both maga and midras, and the kli cheres is maga is tamei. So likewise, the sfinat hayardain, he says, is also tamei, just like the other things. Okay, and then that holds like Hananya, who says it's even going to be impure. Umidras klecher. Okay, so that's two different ways of understanding this Braita. Umidras klecheres minalan de tahor. Now we're going to have a question. How do we know that the midras of a klecheres is going to be tahor? Okay, that's what we said before in this Braita. The Braita said if you sit on an earthenware utensil, it's going to be pure. It's not susceptible to impurity. We're going to have three different reasons. We'll have two, then we're going to get off on a tangent on the second one, or questions on the second. Then we're going to go back to the third. So first proof for midras klecheres tahor. Amar Chizkiah, Damarcha, V'ish asher yiga b'mishkavo. Before we even get into this, actually, I put a chart on the sheet that will help you. There's differences between klei cheres and klei matechet. Okay, metal and earthenware vessels. We've talked about this before, but I'll review again. Number one, a klei cheres cannot go in a mikveh. Shviratan zoi taratan. The only way to get them tahor is to break them. Once they're broken, the tumah leaves them. But otherwise, there's no way to break. There's no way to fix them. Klei matechet, metal implements, can go in a mikveh. Second thing, how do they become tameh? So a klei cheres, if you touch the outside of an earthenware vessel, it doesn't make it impure. If a sheretz, let's say a creepy crawler, falls into the airspace and just kind of hangs there in the airspace of the klei cheres, the airspace makes it tameh. Obviously, if it also settles in there, but it has to be inside the klei and not from the outside. Whereas the klei matechet is the opposite. It's on the outside and not in the airspace. If it goes into the airspace and touches the utensil, it will be impure. But if it just goes into the airspace without touching the sides of the utensil, it's not tameh. Third one, so this we already kind of said, which is you break it. If you break it, and then this is the next step. If you break it, it loses its tumah. If you put it back together, it's not tameh anymore. The tumah is gone. But if you took a metal implement and you broke it, and then it wouldn't be impure anymore. But if you put it back together, now the impurity comes back. Fourth difference. We already talked about the avir without touching. Okay, I just organized it a little differently. If you put it in the airspace without touching it, and flat utensils. If you have a flat klei cheres, earthenware utensil, it's not tameh. If you have a flat metal utensil, then it is tameh. Okay, so that's some differences between it. I put some pictures on the sheet also to explain to you. Also, there's also mechorehen. I forgot to talk about that. Mechorehen is the bottom of the kli. Okay, that's another. How does that come up here? The achorehen, right? It doesn't actually really come up here, but that's the bottom of the cup. Okay. Also, if something gets into the airspace, when we talk about going in the airspace, it could also go in the airspace of the underside of it, and that would also make it impure in a klei cheres. Okay, getting back to the Gemara. So we want to come up with a source when midras klei cheres is pure, isn't susceptible to impurity if you sit on a klei cheres. Amar Chizkiah, Amar Kra. We learn it from the following pasuk. V'ish asher yiga b'mishkavo. This is about a person who's a zav. So if he touches what he sits on. Now, notice it says mishkavo. It doesn't say mishkav, what he sits on. It says mishkavo, his place of sitting. So makish mishkavolo. The word mishkavo is made up of mishkav shelo, his place of sitting. So they say we're going to compare place of sitting to him because it's his place of sitting. Mahu itle tara b'mikvah, just like he can go into a mikvah to become pure again. Af mishkavo nami itle tara b'mikvah. It's only going to become impure if it's something that can actually be purified by a mikvah, which takes out of the picture klei cheres, earthenware vessels, which cannot be put in a mikvah. Tebei Rabbi Yishmael Tana, that's the first reason. Second reason, Tana, so he learns in the house of Rabbi Yishmael, they had a braita. Ki mishkav nidata yihiyela. Okay, this is the pasuk that says about any mishkav asher tishkav alav kol yimei zova, right? She's a zavat, it'll be just like ki mishkav nidata. Just like when she's a nida, likewise, when she's going to be a zava, it's the same thing as a nida. Now, notice what it says here, right? Ki mishkav nidata. So, mat kif mishkav ala. It says she's going to be just like the mishkav. So we're going to say mahi it la tara b'mikvah, just like she can be purified by the mikvah. Af mishkava nami it la tara b'mikvah. Okay, so one of them learned it from the zav and the mishkavo, and one of them learned it from the zava, which says she, right? Mishkav asher tishkav alav is going to be ki mishkav nidata. Again, you have her nida. So again, we're comparing her to the mishkav, and we're saying, just like in the first one, we compared the zav to himself. Here also, it's only going to be something that could go in the mikvah like she does. La fukenya, what does this come to exclude? Klei cheres, de late tara b'mikvah. Okay, now we're going to have a question. Okay, Mativ Rabbi Ilah. Okay, Rabbi Ilah is going to bring a contradiction. Right now we said klei cheres, earthenware vessels, don't have tumah midras because they can't go in a mikvah. We're now going to see something else that can't go in a mikvah. We're going to talk about mat. Okay, a mat made of reeds, that comes up under a klei eitz, something that comes from a tree. And klei eitz pshutehen, Also, if they're flat, like klei matechet, they can be susceptible to impurity, but they can't be toveled in a mikvah. So now we're going to see something about these that even though they can't be toveled in a mikvah, they are going to be tamei tumat midras, which is basically going to go against what we just said. The earthenware vessels can't be going to mikvah, and therefore there's no tumat midras. So you would say the same thing with the mats. And why don't you? That's going to be his question. Mativ Rabbi Ila, mapatz b'meit minayin. How do we know that if you have how do we know that if you have a reed made of, you have a mat made of reeds, how do we know that it's going to be tamei tumat meit? Okay, how do we know that it has impurity of a meit? Because you might have thought it's flat and it doesn't. From where are we going to learn? Vidinhu, we're going to learn it from here. Kavachomer, a logical argument. Uma pachim ktanim shetorim bezav tmeim b'meit. If you have a small jug, it's going to be tahor for a zav. Why is that? Okay, let's talk about it. Well, you can't sit on a little jug because it's it's not meant for sitting. So it doesn't have tumat midras. Could it have tumat maga? Well, what we're talking about is something that's so small that you can't actually put your finger inside. The zav can't put his finger inside. Now, what did we say? Klei cheres, if you touch the outside, it doesn't become impure. Only if you put something inside. Since he can't put his hand or his fingers inside because it's too small, therefore, it can't ever become tamei by a zav. So, despite the fact that it can't become tamei from a zav, it's tameim b'meit. If you have those little jugs in your house and there's a dead body in the house, that's tamei tumat ohel. Or if a dead body touches, well, no, it wouldn't be touching, it would just be tumat ohel. Then it would become impure. So what do you see here? These can't be, they're tohorim bezav and yet tameim b'meit. So a mapatz shetamei bezav, oh, ding, 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 that's our key line. What does it say? A mapatz is tamei bezav. That means, right, he's certainly not, right, the only thing he could do with a mat is to sit on it. So it must have tumat midras. Okay, so you see here that a mapatz is tamei bezav. But anyway, getting back to what this logical argument was, since it's tamei bezav and the pachim ktanim are torim bezav, and yet they're tamei meit, so if this one is tamei bezav, eino din shehei tamei b'meit. Must be. Okay, now here comes a big question. Amai haleit le tara b'mikvah. But a mat can't go in a mikvah because pshutei klei eitz don't go in a mikvah. So only a kli that was made of wood could go in a mikvah to be purified if it became impure. So here you see it doesn't have tara b'mikvah, and yet it's tamei tumat midras. And didn't we just say the reason why earthenware vessels don't accept tuma is because they can't go in a mikvah? Both interpretations said that. So Amar le Rabbi Chanina, Shane hatam ho'il v'ika b'mino. This is different. Earthenware vessels can never go in a mikvah. But even though flat wood vessels, vessels made from trees, wood, can't go in a mikvah, but a rounded one that had a baked kibul, that was a cup or something like that, a bowl, could go in the mikvah. So there's some part of that type of item that could go in a mikvah, and therefore we're going to say that's why it can have tumat midras, because potentially something else made of wood would be able to go in a mikvah. So that's Rabbi Chanina's answer. Amarle, so now Rabbi Chanina, okay, I have to remember who was talking, right? Rabbi Ila asked the question, Rabbi Chanina answered it. Comes Rabbi Ila and he says, Amarle, Rahmana litzla mehai data. He says, what a crazy opinion are you saying? What are you talking about? You can't compare pshutei klei eitz to klei eitz with a beit kibul. This really doesn't have a way to go in the mikveh. It doesn't matter if there's some type like that. I totally disagree with you. So now he says back to him, Adraba. He says, Rabbi Chanina says, no. Rahmana litzla midata didach. You're totally wrong. I'm totally right. Again, there's a big difference between a kli cheres, which can never go in a mikveh, versus a kli eitz, which could theoretically go in the mikveh, even though this one can't. Okay, Vitama mai, and he says, and where do I get this from? Why am I going to show you that you're off base and I'm right? Trey Kraig Tive, because there's two different verses. It says, V'ish asher yiga b'mishkavo, that's the one we saw, Mishkav Shelo. Remember we said, the Mishkav has to be like him, that it could potentially go in the mikveh. But, Ktiv, there's another verse that says, V'kol Mishkav asher yishkav alav azav yitma. Any Mishkav, now notice what it says here, Mishkav, and it doesn't say Mishkavo, which seems like it's including other things that were excluded before. So haketzad, one seems to indicate only things that are like him. One seems to indicate even things that aren't like him. So how do we reconcile? Yesh b'mino apagav delele tara b'mikvah, right? If yesh b'mino, even though it doesn't have tara b'mikvah, but other items like it, if they had a beit kibul, they had a receptacle, then we would say it would be okay. But ein b'mino makish mishkavo lo. But if it doesn't have anything like it, then we're going to say mishkavo lo. It has to be something that can go in the mikvah. So earthenware vessels, since none of them can ever go in a mikvah, they're not going to be included here. Okay, so that was all question on the first two opinions, really, the comparative that said only things that could go in a mikvah. We had a question about the reed, the mat made out of reeds. We answered it by saying, well, other types of things like that could go in a mikvah, even though this couldn't. And that's why that has midras, but things that are made of earthenware vessel, any vessel that's made of, or anything that one sits on that's made from cheres is not going to be susceptible to impurity. But now we have a third answer where we get that midras does not apply to earthenware vessels. Rava Amar, midras plecheres tahor mehacha. In one of the places, the main place where we see about koshering things and fixing things that became impure comes up in the war with the Midyanim in Sefer Bamidbar. So there it says, V'chol klei patuach asher ein samid patil alav, any open vessel that didn't have a covering on it, like a thing wrapped around it, that was sealing it shut, which seems to indicate, okay, and this is going to have tumat mate, that if there was a dead body in the room, it will become impure. Ha-yesh samid patil alav tahorhu. Now, what does it sound like? If it had a samid patil alav, if it was sealed, then it would be tahor. Now, milo askinan diaftinu liishto nida, v'kama rachmana tahor. First of all, it was talking there about earthenware vessels. And now they're going to say, theoretically, just because it was sealed shut doesn't mean that his wife couldn't sit on it. And if his wife, it was something, let's say, that his wife could sit on, theoretically, that should have had the tuma of tumat nida, right? The tumat midras. And yet, the Torah says it's tahor. So from here you can see that even kelim that people could sit on, if they were made of cheres, they're not going to be tahor. And this has nothing to do, according to him, about going to the mikvah. It just what's learned out from this verse about the samid patil, that it's all about things going inside, but yet if she sits on it, it's not going to have tumat midras. Okay, next Mishnah. We're on our third minayin. Minayin la'aruga shehi shishal shishat tvachim shezorim betocha chamisha zer'onim. Okay, what are we talking about here? We have an issue of kilayim. You can't plant things together, crossbreed. So what do we learn here? That if you have an aruga, place where you plant, and it's 6 by 6 tvachim, how many seeds can you plant in there, or how many different types of items can you plant in there without having an issue that they're going to become integrated, okay? That you're going to have a problem of kilayim. Okay, so now we're going to say, how do we know that it's arba? Okay, the answer, right? So what do they say? Shishat tvachim al shishat tvachim, shezorim betocha chamisha zeronim, arba'a al arba ruchot ha'aruga, ve'achat be'emtza. What you do is you take this square area of 6 by 6. You can plant 5 different types of things. Each, okay, it sounds like one in each side, which is not so clear what we mean by side. Okay, we'll talk about this in a minute. And one in the middle. Okay, there's a really good picture, okay, or I should say pictures in the Koren. If you have the Koren, great, you can look at it. If not, I'm also going to show you in the video if you're looking at the video, although it's not super clear. But you can see that there's all these designs of how one can do it. Okay, there's many, many, many different opinions. There's different opinions. Do you need there to be space in between them? Okay, does that, is space necessary? If space is necessary, how much space? Does it have to be 3 tvachim in between? Does it have to be 1.5 tvachim in between? Does it have to be, some people say 1 and a bit, or maybe just 1 tefach? Does it have to be 4, does 4 corners mean, 4 sides means on the sides and then 1 smack in the middle? Does it mean the middle can go farther out? There's all different ways of understanding. I'll leave it as an open question as to how exactly to understand this mission. It's not totally clear. What's clear is that 5 different seeds, 5 different, how would you say it? You can plant 5 different types of seeds within a space of 6 by 6 hands breadths is enough. Okay, that's enough separation, but it's very unclear how much separation needs to be in between them in order for this not to be an issue. How do we know this? That was the whole question. Shneimar, ki ka'aretz totzit simcha, u'chigana zeru'eha tatzmiach. Okay, so here's a pasuk. It's a pasuk in Yeshayahu. Okay, we're taking a verse from there, and we're going to darshan from this pasuk again. This is what I said in the beginning when we started with these verses. They're not necessarily proof texts. They're just ways to remember. So now they're going to say my mashma, where the Gemara asks right away, how do we get from this verse that you could put 5 in the area of 6 by 6? Amar of Yehuda, ki ka'aretz totzi simcha. Totzi is chad, that's 1. Simcha is chad, that's 2. This is a very typical drasha game. Okay, we say, oh, we have 1 this, 1 that, right? We do this at Leil HaSeder, right? Alayam laku chamishim makod, right? And they learn from each of the words. Each word represents makod, etc. Anyway, going back to our issue. So, kikaretz totzi simcha. So, totzi is chad, simcha is another one. Hare tre, that's 2. Zeru'eha is tre. Okay, that's another 2. Zeru'eha is plural, it's seeds. Ha-arba, that gets you to 4. In case you lose count, the Gemara actually tells you we're up to 4. Tatzmiach chad, ha-chamisha, that gets us up to 5. V'kimluhu l'rabbanan, now we get the jump. So the pasuk taught us 5. What didn't the pasuk teach us? How do we know that you could put 5 in a space of 6 by 6? So now they say, v'kimluhu l'rabbanan, d'chamisha b'shita lo yanke mehadade. So now they say, but the rabbis established 5 can go together, that we got from the verse, but in what space? So they say, the rabbis assessed that if you put 5 in a space of 6 by 6, they'll each take nourishment only from their own roots, and their roots won't get combined with each other, and you won't have an issue. Okay, we'll stop here for today. We'll get into the next year about how do we know, right? The next question, I'll just kind of put it out there because it's interesting. How do we know that just because the rabbis established that this is their assessment, that really is significant? Okay, we'll get back to that in the next year. Okay, with that, we'll finish for today.